declassified documents
KGB, CIA.
about the effects on the human psyche, whether the soul is immortal, whether there is a God, and whether or not, whether it's possible for every human being to turn on incredible functions in their brains that the average person doesn't have, and whether it's possible to make our brains give us big money, big results. And most importantly, all of the things that we're going to be talking about today with a Lieutenant General of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, who in the past, my Chief of the General Staff, he is a Doctor of Technical Sciences, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, Honorary Doctor of the European University, participant of a huge number of military operations, honored military specialist. He has been awarded a huge number of orders. He is an academician of the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences, academician of the International Academy of Sciences and the Italian Academy of Economic and Social Sciences. The whole subject that we're going to raise today has been very deeply researched with a huge team of scientists gathered from all over the country, the strongest scientists and the most brilliant scientists. And they proved in 4 years the kind of things that they had been working on in 40 years by Americans
At the CIA.
It's an incredible gift. That today, I was able to get Alexey Yurievich Savin. Alexey Yurievich Savin, a brilliant man, a general, who was the head of a division, who was in charge of the research, the study, an application of the paranormal to military intelligence. It turns out it's scientific, and it turns out it can be done. Anyone can do it, because everything we're going to discuss today was once under the highest and strictest of secrecy, and today we have the opportunity to touch it. And I invite you to come along. Do I understand correctly that you possess clairvoyance or knowledge of telekinesis? Is it possible to enable a person, telepathy in a person?
Well, we haven't really, to be honest with you. We haven't really, at the moment.
Telekinesis and telepathy?
We've looked at people who claim to be as an operator in that field. None of them, one of them impressed us. And then we didn't need it for the war. Telepathy is a must. There's going to be some mistakes. That's
Yes.
again unacceptable.
So what's the method then?
During the lessons, the key to cosmic knowledge is given. What is there? A person through the subconscious mind has the opportunity to receive it. And the main thing is to ask questions accurately. That's the first thing. And the second is that they will not give you things so easily if you work constantly. If you have already got some skill, then please get any information. And scientific information about people and about
Even
natural
scientifically?
processes. I've had people write dissertations, thesis chapters. Among them,
Seriously?
Yes.
You mean plugging in there, writing secrets?
we used to take military men who were trained as agents, and we gave them these assignments.
So what else?
There are various alternatives to choose from in order to optimize a solution. The act of optimizing requires a decision to be made. That's most important to you. You can look at the situation, your acquaintances, partners, rivals. You can look at the situation of your life. You can do anything.
Wow. And do I understand correctly that everyone can learn this?
Absolutely anyone. Well, as long as they're mentally healthy. He's the reason we can take responsibility, even if he's bad. Because will deal with him in their own way, a bad person.
Higher powers.
Well, what kind of situations he can get into and so on. Know these things.
You were talking about hemispheric synchronization. Do you do that through your technique? Or how do you do it? Because I know that the CIA, they utilize chemisync technology to induce a specific auditory experience, enabling individuals to achieve a desired state of mind.
Well, the sounds, and they didn't give drugs. Rebirthing. Holotropic, yeah.
They. And you?
No. First of all, it was already known scientifically how to activate the right hemisphere. How? Through exercise. Creativity, let's say, of course, yes.
And the ones you gave us for vision?
Once they were in sync.
Right.
The teacher already knows it, sees it, feels it, and that's when the subconscious mind starts working. That is, the subcutaneous processes are activated, and the subconscious mind starts working. And that's it right there with who? With your great subconscious. You're starting to get to know yourself.
Yes.
And you're starting to get to know yourself through it. That's the job. But the subconscious mind is also a little hard to find, so to speak. Somewhere out there in the cosmos, someone to connect to. You have to tune it in. You have to tune it to the right wave so that it doesn't fixate on this level. It jumps from here. There's a very high level of certainty here, virtually error-free.
You've studied the brain, right?
Yes. And do you think, can the brain be programmed to follow any command, achieve any goal, make it easy, money, success? And before we're going to continue, I want to say something. Since you're watching this right now, you're most likely interested. And if you are interested, it's our job to make sure that this brilliant knowledge, the greatest knowledge, to become as widely known as possible. And I have a big, big goal that we gather here, not just subscribers, not just those who passed by, looked and forgot, but that we gather here a community of people who will help me carry out my mission. And part of my mission is to introduce you to those people. The opportunity to introduce you to Alexey Yurievich. Was this YouTube channel? If it had not existed, if it had not developed, this opportunity would not have existed. So if you are interested in what we are talking about, if you want to have access to the greatest minds in the world, access to the greatest minds on this planet, and media gives you tremendous access, your job right now is to like it and subscribe to the channel. Because the more of us there are, the more media weight the channel has. And the easier it's going to be for me to reach out to other people that I can bring in. They're here. And you and I will then organize a vote and choose who we want to bring in this time. Because you and I will have such power that everyone will want to speak on the channel, because there will be a lot of us. And great people want to broadcast their thoughts to a huge number of people. In fact, you subscribe and you put a like for your own interest. And in fact, you promote this video, and then you help a huge number of people wake up and become happier. So definitely need to do that now.
I think you have to influence the course of things. You have to through your subconscious mind. Again, the trajectory of your work, further movement, feel it properly, writing, and follow no one, and control yourself. And some questions to ask yourself. Let's say every weekend, you have to ask yourself questions. How did you live this weekend? What new things did you learn? What new people did you meet? And so on and so forth. And then there has to be an environment. There has to be an environment. Gotta avoid people. You know, the sluggish ones, losers and all. Losers, of course, are people who don't believe in themselves, who immediately, without even listening to the questions, already have enough answers in their heads. No, I should just, find the lucky ones, lucky people. I was lucky enough to be among geniuses when I worked at the Nightlife Institute, and I learned a lot. I did a lot for myself, for my character. the character of the clever things I've done. If you don't believe in yourself, expect a challenge. Not just a smooth road, expect a challenge that you have to go through here and get stronger, yes, a little bit, smarter, stronger.
If you believe in yourself, then the trials start to kick in, to nurture you even more, to give you new power, to give you new access, and to nurture you.
Yes.
Well, it's spiritual evolution, I guess.
That's right.
It's just evolution, but I've encountered it. Why do I ask? It's just that I've kind of been able to find some ways to influence reality. I mean, I studied esotericism first, and then I realized that underneath esotericism is science. That is, you dig, and in the end there is science there. And I started to explain all these processes, and I explained myself at the expense of scientists' works just how it is possible to program the scenario of life. But by that, when you believe in yourself, of course. Oh, already, what do you program? Do you have any control over your psyche? Control your psyche, control your fears, so that you don't program anything unnecessary into yourself? So the checks begin, yes. Now, based on what we have discussed, I would like to tell you one more time. Just think about it. Our psyche can be influenced. Our brain can be influenced. We do not know at all what kind of biomachine it is that gives us such tremendous results. I mean, if everyone can have clairvoyance, then the brain can be programmed. The brain can really be programmed. Then it is really possible to make your brain realize any scenario of your life. And I have a training on this topic because I've been working. Alexey Yurievich and I agreed that he is interested in brain and science, and I am interested in brain and science, and how to connect these reserves of the organism in order to easily get any results. How to get a lot of money easily, how to realize absolutely any goal. I have a training on this topic. I conduct this training very rarely. There is a link below the video now. If you manage to register through this link, consider it your incredible luck, because if during registration you get huge red letters that all seats are taken, then alas, sorry, just did not have time. If you do make it, you're very lucky. You make sure you put a reminder on your calendar. I'll come to this training because I'm going to tell you how to turn on the button in your head. To turn on the big money. And that is to program your brain to get any results. Because Alexey Yurievich also said that, among other things. Yes. Long ago, the Americans, among others, have methods of psychological influence on the personality. And my method of brain programming is a method of psychological correction of personality in express conditions, where a month of brain programming replaces a year of psychotherapy. And just imagine what you could achieve in a year with the most awesome psychologists. That's the same thing you could accomplish in a month through brain programming. And that's why it's a guarantee that people grow there. We did a big social experiment that lasted for 2 years. 1,500 people went through it. This experiment and its results fit the scientific justification in the end, and we are now registering this method at the state level. So, sign up here, and if you want to reach a new level of income and unlock your enormous potential that lives inside of you, to reach a new level of life through the scientific method, not a magic pill, but the scientific method of activating the hidden resources and the hidden reserves of our body. I really like that you are missionaries. I feel it, that you are a missionary, that you have this mission. It is even understandable. Otherwise, you would not be doing it with such interest. What perhaps is your global goal? That is, why are you doing this?
I would like society to become better, so that the evil that has accumulated and is growing, unfortunately, is not perceived by our society. And it's shameful to do bad things. Shame to steal. It is shameful to cheat. Ashamed to fight, to be punched in the face. Oh, come on. We have to negotiate differently. Settle disputes. I've been through 7 wars in the line of duty. And of course, I'm sharp.
I heard about Chechnya. Come back.
I'm acute. I started my military or something, my career with Angola. I was only 26 and 27 years old. That's where I started, and then Angola and Vietnam and Afghanistan and Egypt and 2 Chechnyas and Serbia. We really wanted to help the Serbs, abandoned, betrayed, and we helped them. We told them when they were going to be hit, what targets the Americans or NATO would be working on, and so on. The Serbs were waiting for them. The Serbs shot down their missiles. The Serbs were shooting down their airplanes. They already knew when they were coming, which route to shoot them down.
Tell me, please.
I even got a medal for bravery from the Serbs.
You see, you've been everywhere.
Can you tell me, please, how is it that you got into the whole... into the military in general? And how did it happen that you became interested in all of this? What we're going to discuss today. And how did it happen that you also headed this direction? I mean, I know you've told this 1,000 times, so...
I graduated from the Naval Academy,
You can,
Naval Aviation. After that, I had a very strong diploma. And after that, I went to a research institute which started developing cruise missiles. So in this institute were gathered very interesting people, very interesting, very well-rounded, educated, intelligent, hardworking, and this environment of geniuses, it certainly had an impact. I started reading more. I started going to the theater more often. I started to find myself in that environment or remake myself. I liked that a lot. I liked it a lot. I reached for them, but it was creative work with elements, maybe a scientific risk, thoughtful in a way. And because of those, it was in general I was invited to the central office of the Ministry of Defense and Armament Management, in which I worked for 2 or 3 years. And then I was invited to an elite group in this department. There was an elite analytical group. It was created just under me. If the other officers were interviewed, I already had a reputation. I was just invited. They called me at home at night.
an elite group that dealt with Chechnya.
Analyzing everything. Anything that didn't come to the Ministry of Defense or wrote to the Secretary of Defense, to his deputies, incomprehensible things, everything went there.
All paranormal, right?
Not paranormal, but unusual things. Yes, sure, that includes encounters.
That's where I missed the point. How come you ended up in a paranormal research group?
That's a little later.
So the
In
whole
the
thing started
beginning,
to take shape
themselves
on its own,
in this group were asked questions. They asked questions that had no answer, in fact. And we were supposed to find the answer and make a proposal to management, how to respond to that particular question. I was pretty good at that. Plus, I have a good hand and a good head. I wrote a lot of articles. My articles on the armament of military equipment were published in 10 countries of the world. It was also noticed by the management. And when it came direction from the Defense Department brass to get into the subject of the Psi Warrior, I was the one who created it. I had experience, of course, already working in this analytical group. I contacted the intelligence service of the German Democratic Republic, one of the strongest intelligence agencies in the world. I applied to our intelligence. I turned to KGB intelligence, and they gave me exhaustive material on all psychotechniques of the world. When I collected this material, and it became clear that the terrible lag from them all, and this strategic breakthrough was made from the Western world and the Eastern world, I had to go and report to the Chief of General Staff. But we, the chiefs, were too embarrassed to go to him with bad news, so I went. Moiseev was chief of the General Staff, Mikhail Alexeyevich. I made a report to him. I made him a report and my proposals. that we should create a special unit which would have dealt with this issue much better than I did, and would prepare outlines, state programs, because this is a very important thing, a very important thing. And he immediately offered me to lead this group. But he saw my suitability on this issue. I resented that we were behind. I resented the fact that everybody missed it. Everyone had somehow relied on the traditional, conventional weapons. Ash 2, Boss Man 2, it's a weapon stronger than atomic bombs. And I'm actually by nature in mine. I'm not used to giving in. Give in. I have to win by nature, the honest way, through hard work, through character, perseverance. Here too, he felt the case. How many men do you need? 10 men to start with, and just 2 or 3 days later, there was an order from the Minister of Defense to organize our unit. It was called a special division at the General Staff, and that was it. I said goodbye to my analytical friends and came to the General Staff. I didn't have time to get into the office. I had 7 phones on my desk. Straight up, straight through, with the leadership.
How did you feel at that moment?
Excitement. I understood the subject matter. I understood one side and the scope of these works in the world, but I had excitement, and I saw everyone's weaknesses. But the biggest weakness was that no one understood the nature of these abilities. So I got up the courage. I called Leningrad, Natalia Petrovna Bekteleva. She gathered about 200 scientists from all over the Soviet Union.
And by herself. So you
Sama
talked and
took the initiative.
she...
And so we sat with these people for 3 days. Bekteleva was invited to her family in Leningrad, and they wrote a program, a state program. When I arrived in Moscow, I reported to the chief of the General Staff. Well, I'm looking at it. He was ready to take off his hat, as they say, for such hard work. Yes. I don't think I've ever seen such a pace, especially such heavy work, heavy subject matter. And then everybody's like that. Well, I didn't really support the CPSU. I mean the ideology of this one and so on. And I had to convince. And for the first time to study as the CPSU, because it didn't depend. Here, well, fate, the further fate of this work. By that time, fate began to help me. Suddenly I met Finance Minister Pavlov. Very interesting. He and I started talking. Philosophical. I read a lot, very much. In my year, I read about 300 books a year now. Yes.
Do you still read?
I do.
Can anyone brag about how many books they've read in the last year?
Now we've got this little spat going on. And Pavlov becomes Prime Minister of the Soviet Union. And I immediately asked him to help me to promote this program. And he introduced me to the men from the Central Committee of the CPSU. And they also saw my obsession.
Okay.
They realized that there is still a lag. And I opened their eyes to this lag, what it is fraught with. They saw my obsession. That's it. And that's why they were supportive. And then there were the older people. They wanted me to get to the immortality of the soul, not since death.
Did you get to the bottom of it?
Yes. We conducted an experiment together with the KGB. I had a very good associate, General Nikolai Alexeyevich. We organized a reincarnation experiment with him. Here, we had a very successful experiment. Here, and we proved that there is reincarnation of souls. And so on and so forth. And before that, I read something else.
I know about this experiment. I've watched your interviews. Is there maybe some published, let's say, your research that could be found somewhere on the internet?
Yeah, unfortunately. I haven't thought of that. It's not secret. I had everything in secret. First, of course, I had to protect myself from foreign intelligence agencies, then from journalists who found something. Information is still leaked. There were friendly people, well, good, and a lot of evil. That is, people who worked not for our country, but like Novaya Gazeta worked for the Americans and so on here. And they had a high profile.
Is it off now?
And then they paid for the high profile. I wanted to encourage my employees. There were several occasions.
So it was a very high security clearance at that time, right?
A very high. It's Sovsekreta with an S on it. The first letter of my last name. Very top secret. They paid for it. 25% of the whole thing. After the experiment with reincarnation, when I left a note there and told that we proved reincarnation, that the soul does not die, it lives. And I also read out, of course. And Pavlov wrote, the famous Pavlov, he wrote that there is no death. Death is the human soul. I'd made friends with Petharim by then, Archbishop Petharim, who brought me literature, brought her literature, and very many interesting things were written by Christian scholars. I became very closely acquainted with Muslim muftis. A few people, we were just friends.
Then in your scientific work with scientists together, you got to the bottom of what God really is and whether he exists?
Well, first of all, I was not very eager to get to the bottom of it. I made my own conclusions. And then, when I started to train great operators, when we understood the nature of these abilities, when we started to train our employees on enhanced programs and so on, then we were approached by the Academy of Natural Sciences, the Academy of Sciences, the Ministry of Health and so on, various organizations, the Institute of Philosophy, the Academy of Psychology, the Institute of Physics of the Earth, space research. I was involved everywhere. My work obliged me to be in this environment. And we made a list of questions on which we should receive space information. It was in the 91st, 92nd years, that's about it.
That is, it turns out that from the 88th year to the 91st, 92nd years, you have already managed to reveal the very nature. That is, you had the task to overtake the Americans by revealing the nature of all these
7 years ago.
To find the key to all this so that... And you have managed to overtake them in this time and already to the bottom of the barrel.
And in a big way. 20 years ago, there were some people from the Vatican, one cardinal and a couple people together. Yes.
So you managed to attract them, huh?
They studied with us, we worked with them.
Yes.
And they've been asking for us to open a center together at the Vatican. Yeah, was against it. Why? I would like to surprise my compatriots with such qualities, first of all.
And we don't give you such opportunities?
No. Who does? Yeltsin's team was very weak. There must have been some big level outputs. They didn't understand, they didn't need it. They needed to fill their wallets. But right now I would say that I'm not ready. They're not ready. Even though they use our services, sometimes they're not ready.
Oh, I mean, there's no group like you had, but that's a shame.
No. The most important thing we've done, the first thing we did was create a methodology to understand the nature of these superpowers, establish ourselves, become credible. We've solved a lot of crimes, participated in military operations and so on. You've done a great job everywhere.
Then how did it happen that we don't need it now?
we became dangerous. We knew everything about man, and how many corrupt people do we have in power?
Oh, that's it.
Thank God they didn't kill us. The only thing they killed was the man who had all the information. He had a dossier.
All of them.
But I had time to take the material from him and destroy it. I knew it was dangerous. Well, they didn't get it. They took him to the cottage and killed him.
What year was that?
Well, I don't remember. It was 2,000 years ago.
Is that when, and I guess that's when you stopped that group, right?
Well, in the 2003 year, at the end of the 2003 year, before the top class of the president disbanded.
How did you feel about that?
I prayed to God that we didn't get killed. Then, well, I was already retired anyway. I'm going to write for myself. I'll write by myself, I'll train people by myself, and so on. Well, of course, I had to gather the material myself, think it over, to start some groups. And it went on and on. Yes, and I think that we still haven't put an end to this topic. We will recruit people. We will recruit people. We will give them these super qualities, well, and make better people, starting with kids and the elderly.
Yes. So your mission now is to gather as many people as possible and give them this technology.
To give them, yes, these qualities, these data. First of all, space. Consciousness, first of all, I would like to give here. Well, and then when they pass one there, the second cycle of our training, we should select the strongest among them. One can't cover everything. And then train teachers, a school for training teachers, a school of grandmasters of success. People still need to be successful, know how to be successful. I consider myself successful. Here, a man, honestly, here, I have everything, in general, that I wanted. Here, has succeeded. Here, and moreover, there, for the rest of my life. Here, I know what to do, and that I will never leave this subject. Well, all that understood, especially the elderly people. Well, pity them. Nobody needs them. They sit on a bench, that's all. Well, someone with sticks walks around. They're looking for nothing. Here, we're preparing a special course for people to advertise the city. Aristenia, siestasi, yes, so that they find what their happiness is, so that they work on it, so that they won't be...
You're in the process of developing that course?
Yes, we're finalizing that course. I think by the new year, a lot of things...
Tell me about what courses in general are out there, and
We're the first discourse related to the emergence, the discovery of unusual abilities. Here, it's so seeing a person, or how to read a person like a book, to know the intentions of your opponents, knowing the contents of documents, not seeing them in documents.
Can you do that? Yes.
Yes.
So, conditionally, you came in and considered me, right away?
Documents. Well, why? You count me, right? Well, when I did your customization, it was very important to me to see, when I was giving my introductory lectures,
yes,
it was very important to see, to feel each person, so that each person has his own key.
Oh, so when I came to your training, you had already read everything?
Yes. Of course I did. It was more important for me to set up the brain because, the band was really good and there were no bad people, normal good guys here, and willing to do something. That's what really pleased us, willing to do something. Well, since fate has brought us together, let's do something together. I invite you here, and yes, to cooperation. Well, you have to know first, to master properly the methodology, and so freely communicate or receive information as I and my colleagues know how to do.
In the end, you have a course to train people who will possess cosmic consciousness. In your understanding, cosmic consciousness is when a person is more spiritual, more spiritually evolved there with open consciousness, that is, he can read other people, read their plans. Right? What else?
His own, to build the vector of his development precisely. like a plan of further life, further actions.
What his goals are, yeah,
Here.
and how he's going to achieve them, right?
Yes, yes, what weaknesses, what strong qualities. We don't even see our strong qualities anymore. Yeah, but we have to recognize them. And creativity. Creativity is a must. Here, this is poetry. These are parasitic works. Somebody started music, somebody started painting. Even paintings are being shown abroad. Here, this is a very important issue. Then issues related to politics, issues related to the economy, also kind of space prompts, all this business. Yes.
It turns out that you teach people to communicate with their subconsciousness or conditionally with their higher self. That is,
I introduce
they
them
call
to
it differently.
cosmic knowledge, to cosmic entities through their subconsciousness, through the subconscious. I tune it so that it passes me by, here. And it begins to communicate with these living ones, with the super cosmic ones. There's the sun, the Initius Alipagit ones called the spiritual hierarchy.
That's, So it's not other civilizations, right? No.
No, it's not other civilizations, even though we have a separate topic on other civilizations and so on. But we think this is the most important topic. This topic is the most important. And we have Mishkina, Margarita Mishkina, who came to us to be treated for cancer. Yes, thank God we cured her. Then we got her on the team. Turned out to be a bit of a problem.
And you studied her through this method of yours back then?
I had very strong doctors. I had unique equipment, just medical, diagnostic, and drug selection and so on. And of course, they used the method, but I treated her. It was a big responsibility. The person had already come in such a neglected state. Then it went. The pain disappeared. Yeah, it's more fun. That's it. Very good character, very good character. And we got her on the team. And then it went from there. She got graduated from high school, then college, then graduate school. And somehow it began to develop and blossom before my eyes. And here's an epochal work to the measure of understanding. It could even be compared to the Bible, I'd say. So precise, so clear. In general, in an accessible language on all this matter wrote. Everyone in the chapter has written or divided something, written or considered on the scientific council. At the council,
what she was describing, those cosmic questions, yes, that you prescribed for her.
Was, so she prescribed 6 or 7 research institutes. Scientists formed these questions. Here they gave them to her. And then for each section, the scientific council of the Security Council met and considered, reviewed,
on how
and
well
she
she
would report
described
back.
How, yes?
Yes, but they made sure quickly that it was correct. How complete, that's another thing. They really wanted her to disclose more fully.
Is there? Read it where?
I think that's what I think it was.
Oh, it's right
Let's
here.
see, yeah.
Yeah, is there any like an open access book maybe for people to buy?
No.
Am I right to understand that this is like some kind of, let's say, book, yes, about the universe, how everything really works? So your cameraman learned it there, and the scientists checked it out, yeah, and confirmed that it was both accurate and super complete answers to questions. And as I recall, we were told in training when I was in training here, and I'll tell you about that separately. It's amazing. When you go to even the very first training, when you take it, because you start to learn clairvoyance. What do you call it? What do you call it? Because you can't call it clairvoyance. Well,
local knowledge, you might say.
Clairvoyance. Well, let's call it that. When you learn clairvoyance, that is, even at the first trainings, it turns out 2 days, you already begin to be able to do such things. I mean, I managed to do it. Just think about it for a second, and you'll want to go there. We were given an assignment to describe, we were put into pairs.
And they said, describe the character of a person in 8 points.
Who after you describe them, would be guessed by your partner. So you have to first to shut down. Just write the 8 items that come to your mind. And only then your partner has to think of a person. And you have to do the same thing. I mean, I described and wished for a person that my partner had supposedly described by my partner. And I got 100% on all the points, and he confirmed it. And it was a challenge with a complication. Before, it was the other way around. We did it first. I guessed, he guessed, we had a descriptive problem, and then they gave us this problem with a complication. It is interesting, that is, at that moment you also realize that linear time does not exist. So you experience it and you think, wow, I described it now, and he didn't think of it until later. In general, and I am a person without any preparation at all, without everything, so I super recommend you to go and test it on yourself, because at this moment you are convinced that a person, even without preparation, can open clairvoyance and you can read some incredible things. And it is all scientifically substantiated. It was done by a great man. In general, you will be given this secret book, which I received, in order to continue to develop. I have something else here besides it. I don't know yet. I haven't been told yet. We'll see after the shooting. But there you will be sent just the materials that the cameraman wrote. Alexey Yurievich, and describe the world order. How it all works in general, how the universe works, how everything is organized, how all these processes are organized, and scientists have confirmed it. And this is not available anywhere in the public domain. Just imagine, you almost get some kind of secret key to the Vatican Library, and maybe even better, therefore. The link to the trainings will be at the bottom, and you should definitely go there, given that they cost some very little money, and I don't even know why.